Welcome to RickRackRuby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be making this large cone Santa. He's fun and easy, so let's get started. To make the cone Santa, we'll start with a 17-inch paper mache cone. This is from Hobby Lobby. And then I have a thrifted red cashmere sweater. You can use any sweater, or if you don't want to use a sweater, you can use a knit fabric or some fleece or even felt. The first thing that I want to do is be sure that this cuff is going to be nice and tight around the base, which it is. And then I'm kind of determining how tall this is inside the sleeve. I'm not making a pattern, I'm not going to measure, I just kind of want to get an idea of how the sleeve, how much needs to be removed. This is actually a men's sweater and it's a fairly large size. It has a lot of damage, some holes and stuff, so I don't feel bad about cutting it. I went to the thrift store yesterday and found this. There's plenty to be found at the thrift store. All right, so this is the seam on this edge. So what I'm going to do is just take my scissors and cut. I'm not going to cut the cuff, but just above the cuff. Since the sweater is so stretchy, this doesn't have to be exactly perfect. I have confidence that once I sew it up and slip it over, it's going to be fine. I'll pin this edge and I'm going to stitch from the bottom to the top, turn it right side out, and I'll be right back. I have my glue gun and my trusty sewing machine, my Bernina, loaded up with red thread and ready to go. There we go. I've sewn up that seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a zigzag stitch, and then I trimmed it a little bit. And I just want you to see that right here where the cuff is, I did not cut or sew that. I just started about a 1/4 inch above the cuff, and that's where I started sewing. Now I'm going to turn this right side out, and hopefully it's a good fit for the cone. I'm using a needle to pull out the point of the hat. Actually, this isn't really the hat because we're going to do a second sweater for the hat, but it's the top of the cone, the point of the cone. Now I'm pulling this over the cone, nice and tight. I'm wrapping it around the bottom. This type of cone is from Hobby Lobby. It's the type that has this little base here. So I just want to make sure that the ribbing from the cuff wraps around the base, and there's the seam going. I'm going to call that the back. And just to make this nice and secure, I'm going to spot glue this with hot glue right in here, right here, boop, like that. There we go, perfect. I can see this ribbing is nice and even around, and it's glued here, spot glued. I just did kind of 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and that is ready to go. The point is nice and pointy. And the next thing we're going to do is the face. The face is going to be glued to the front, and I want to make sure it has enough time to dry with white glue, so I'm going to do that right away. For the face, I'm using felt, and you can use any color of felt. You can use brown, tan, white, pink, whatever color you want. I pulled this one out. It's sort of a peach color, and I ironed on some interfacing, and then I use my die cutter. This one is about 2.5 by 3.5. That'll work. You could go a little smaller, a little bigger. You can cut it by hand. You can even do a rectangle, whatever you like. I just kind of like the looks of this one. And we're going to embroider the face, the eyes, really, with 3 strands of black floss. I'm going to use this disappearing marker to just give some indications of where the eyes will go. This is not, I'm not drawing the eyes, I'm just placing some indicators. So it's about halfway, right here is about halfway up the oval, and the oval goes on to the cone this way. Let's call that horizontally, like this, not like this. I have 3 strands of black floss with a knot in the end, and I'm going to create an eye with 3 stitches. It creates sort of a triangle. All 3 of my stitches go into the point at the top, but then they're spread out at the base like a triangle. 1, 2, 3. Generally, I like the center stitch to be a little bit lower, but it can be higher. There's the first eye. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the eyebrow. Eyebrows give your character a lot of personality, and by using a heavy dark eyebrow, he looks a little bit more like a man, a little bit more masculine. So I'm going to tie off. I have the interfacing on, so that's going to provide a little bit of opacity, and perhaps I could go across to the second eye, but I just don't want to risk it. So I'm going to just tie that off. It's going to be glued to the cone, so I'm sure that those stitches are not going to come out, even though I didn't really tie off the thread very well. Okay, so now we're going to do the second one, and sometimes it's hard to get them both to match exactly, but I'm okay with that. Before I glue it onto the cone, I'm going to blush the cheeks. I have a cotton swab with a little bit of Cosmetic Blush on it. And since I have the blush in my hand, I'm going to use one of these little 1/4 inch furniture buttons for the nose. And I like for that also to be blushed. So I'm going to just add some blush to the front of this and then set it aside for a few minutes. I always like to have a surface to glue on. And I'm going to add a generous amount of this, my favorite, Aleene's Original Tacky Glue in the gold bottle. I'm going to use a stick to apply a thin film of glue just to spread it out. Make sure that the glue goes all the way to the edges. That looks good. And then we'll determine here's the center back. So about here is the center front. So I've placed the face about 4.5 inches from the bottom of the base here. I'm making sure that it's stuck on, and I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is going to be the hat. I have another sweater here. This is more of like a, I don't know, like a Nordic type of a design, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing, where the cuff is going to come to here, and then we're going to put the hat on. The point will be here, and again I'm going to cut and sew to here, so about this long, and then I'll cut in a diagonal right along here, and then turn it inside out and stitch it and place it over the point of the hat. I'm going to start by cutting about 1/4 or 1/2 inch above the cuff. I like to be a little bit generous when I do this, because you can always make it tighter. So there we go. Then I'll fold it, and again, I'll do a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a zigzag for this, and I'll be right back. Here we go. Here's the hat. I just sewed up from the cuff to the point with a zigzag, and now I'm going to turn it right side out and place it over the point of the cone. Sweaters are really fun to work with. They're so stretchy, they pretty much always work. So I'm pulling this on. I'm going to have the cuff of the sweater overlap the face a little bit. I want to see those eyebrows, so I don't want it too low. And I want to be sure that the point is nice and sharp. Okay, I think that's a little too much. Let's show the eyebrows. There we go. Oh, and also you can always kind of tuck it up like that. That's cute too, but that's more like for a gnome. So I'm going to make this one is definitely a Santa and not a gnome. So in the back, I want to be sure that the seams line up. So there's the seam of the hat and there's the seam of the body. I'm going to pin this to secure, and then I'm going to stitch it all the way around. If you like to glue, you can glue it, but I find it hard to keep it neat. Sometimes the hot glue just kind of creeps out, and in the case of fabric like this, it's just, I don't know. For me, it's hard to keep it neat, and it just takes a second to sew. So I have a needle and a single strand of red quilting thread. So I'm going to start right here and just stitch. There we go. You can see that I was taking big stitches. It doesn't really take much to hold this hat on. I'm going to knot off my thread. Just pop it through. Boop. Now for the hair and the beard, I'm using this long pile white fur. So this is faux fur. And for the hair, I've cut a 2" by 8" length, and you know, be sure the nap goes down. Then for the beard, it's 5 inches tall and 7 inches wide. And again, you want to be sure that the nap is down. And then I cut out a little tiny piece here for the nose. And I also like to apply a thin strip of hot glue and just glue under this top edge so that the raw edge of the fur doesn't show against his face. So I'll do that right now. Just a little bead of glue and then just press it like that. Now you might wonder why I didn't put the hair on first. It's just hard to sew the edge of the hat if you have this fur in the way. So I prefer to add the hair after the hat. And again, I'm going to go ahead and squeeze out a little bead of glue along here and then press the top edge into the glue. Now starting in the back, I'm going to glue the hair on. So I'm going to determine the back center, which is right here. Here, I'll mark it with a pin. And then I'm going to squeeze out a nice bead of glue. I'll probably start like here and then do one side and then press it on, and then the other side and then press it on. And then I'll spot glue as needed. In the back center up, I'm putting it right along the edge of the hat. I think you can see that. There we go. Cute. Very cute. And then again, I'll put some glue along this edge, just below where that fold is. Now you may find that you have excess fur here. The 8x2 is just kind of an estimate, but generally that'll work with this size of a cone. And also I kind of like when the fur goes crazy like that. I just think that's adorable. But if you want it to be, you know, a little bit smoother, you can use hairspray or something to smooth it all down. Now here's the beard. And in the same way, we're going to glue that on. Don't put it up too high. Just put it a little bit lower than you think, because this fur will fill in. Remember, we have this little 1/4-inch nose. Just going to be really cute. But I like to glue that after the beard. I want the beard to be up high, but not so high that you can't see the eyes and the cheeks. And I'm going to begin by gluing the center. The glue doesn't need to be too close to the edge, because you don't want it to creep out and be exposed on the surface of the face. There we go. And there's that little dip that I cut. I can see the cheeks. The point of the beard is pretty well centered here. I like when there's a little bit of beard that's long and it kind of rests on the tabletop. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to continue to add some glue along here and press this, and I'm going to press it right over the hair so it kind of joins in with the hair. There's the first side, and then the same thing for the second side. I'll apply glue along here, and then I'll just glue it right over the hair. Then I'm just going to spot glue under here to make sure that the beard is secure. Adorable. Now for the nose, just a little bit of glue on the back of the nose. Don't put too much, because then it's going to squeeze out and it's going to show. And I prefer for that not to show. It holds really well to the felt. This is looking really cute. Now we're going to do a little embellishment. I'm not going to put a Pom Pom on the top. I don't know, for some reason the Pom Pom seems a little too juvenile, is that the word? I don't know. And now I'm kind of wishing I had this snowflake centered. But I think it's too late for that. That's okay. So I have a couple of options. I have some of this black and white twine, which is what I think I'm going to use. And I also have some little baby pine cones. These are little hemlock cones. And they started off like this, but I just think these are like a little too big. So I took my wire cutters and I just kind of reached in there and cut them. It's a little messy, but I just think that's a little bit more proportional. I don't want them sticking out so far, and I just want them a little bit smaller. So I think that's going to be good. 3 little hemlock cones and some black and white twine. This twine is a little bit heavier. This is more of like a gift wrap twine rather than something that you would actually sew with. So I'm going to do 3 little pine cones. And I'll wrap this more on the cuff rather than on the pattern here. And then a little bow. And put the bow over so it doesn't fall on his face. I'll tie the ends, because they will fray if you don't tie them. All right, so this is the biggest cone, so I'll put this on the bottom. I have a nice generous amount of glue. It's looking really cute. The face is adorable. Now the final step is, if you want to give your Santa just the suggestion of a little mustache, Then I have a can of hairspray, and I'm just going to spray a little bit on my fingers. And then I'm just going to kind of twist this a little bit. There we go. Then I'm going to have a look. Do I want to, you know, style this hair in any way? Maybe in the back I will. All right, a little more hairspray. And then I'm just going to, in the back, I'll kind of pull that down a little bit. But I like it when it's kooky around the face. I like that. Great. Now, if you like, of course, you can add a Pom Pom or more decorations or more color. You could have a green hat. You can do Mrs. Claus. The options are endless, but for this project, I'm going to say he's done. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.